Thank you, Dr. Hanson.
Chairman Royce, Ranking Member Engel, and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to discuss ISIS's destruction of minority religious and cultural sites. ISIS's campaign of targeted extermination includes the erasure of the outward manifestations of minority religious culture, which threatens these communities' way of life. I study this subject as a fellow at the Penn Cultural Heritage Center of the University of Pennsylvania Museum. But like others on this panel, I was in Erbil, Iraq in August 2014 when ISIS advanced towards the Erbil Plain. As a program director at the Iraqi Institute for the Conservation of Antiquities and Heritage in Erbil, I was leading a course for heritage professionals from throughout the country, men and women of every religion. This training was interrupted, and we departed abruptly shortly after airstrikes began. Despite this setback, the desire of Iraqi heritage professionals to protect the religious and cultural sites of the country remains strong. Based on my current research, experience in Iraq, and consultation with Iraqi colleagues, I want to share some examples of ISIS's destruction. Slide 1, please. In July 2014, in Mosul, Iraq, ISIS destroyed the shrine of Nebi Yunus, also known as the tomb of the prophet Jonah. Analysis of satellite imagery by the American Association for the Advancement of Science's Geospatial Technologies project, where I am a visiting scholar, confirmed this destruction. Slide 2, please. This analysis also showed that ISIS removed all evidence of the shrine by clearing rubble and grading the site flat. In doing so, ISIS erased the physical presence of Nebi Yunus for the entire local religious community. Slide 3, please. Deir Europos is an archaeological site in Syria with uniquely preserved Roman provincial architecture. It includes the world's best preserved ancient Jewish synagogue and one of the earliest known Christian house chapels. The chapel dates to about 235 AD and contains the oldest known depiction of Jesus Christ. Slide 4, please. The site has now been extensively looted and is currently under ISIS control. The before and after image analysis completed by the AAAS's Geotech project demonstrates that over 76% of the site's surface has now been lost. Slide 5, please. 2 months ago, I traveled to the Dahuk Governorate in Iraq, which is adjacent to ISIS-held areas. I met with the director of the Antiquities Department to identify religious and cultural sites at risk. This site, Lalesh, may be one of the only surviving Yazidi religious centers. Slide 6, please. ISIS has released 2 videos that include the defacement of an ancient sculpture called the Lamassu. These are human-headed winged bulls, and in ancient times, they represented the power of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from the 9th to 7th century BC. Today, they serve as important symbols for Syrian Christians. ISIS's defacement is thus intended to terrorize the present-day Iraqi Christian community while simultaneously destroying ancient artifacts. In thinking about how we can address this destruction, I would like to offer 3 recommendations. First, we must prepare humanitarian assistance to religious and refugee communities as well as to displaced heritage professionals. In the near future, I will return to Erbil, Iraq with colleagues from the University of Pennsylvania Museum and the Smithsonian Institution. And there we will work with our Iraqi colleagues to determine unmet emergency needs. More programs like this are necessary, and the U.S. government should encourage new collaborations in the nonprofit sector. Second, this committee should inquire into efforts to protect religious and other cultural sites during military actions against ISIS. There is a report that should shed some light on these efforts due in June 2015, thanks to a provision sponsored by Mr. Engel in the National Defense Authorization Act. I recommend that this committee scrutinize the report carefully for evidence that steps are being taken to avoid accidental airstrikes on religious and cultural sites, and that protection measures are incorporated into advisory roles and military trainings. Finally, there is bipartisan legislation, the Protect and Preserve International Cultural Property Act, introduced by Mr. Engel, Mr. Smith, Mr. Royce, and Mr. Keating. Its purpose is twofold: to bring together the agencies that have existing mandates to protect heritage, and to eliminate the financial incentive for entities such as ISIS to loot religious and cultural artifacts. I commend this committee for its bipartisan leadership on this bill, and I urge you to advocate for its final passage into law. I would like to thank the chairman for convening this important hearing at a very critical juncture in the preservation of religious and cultural heritage. I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hanson. That legislation, by the way, has been passed out of committee. It's on the floor, and we're going to move it shortly. And I would just